Finally, Northwestern has thrown their hat in the ring for something very vital to college athletics. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Northwestern, your daily podcast on the Northwestern Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to Locked On Northwestern, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Carter Bird, and thank you for making Locked On Northwestern your first listen every day. We really appreciate it. We're available wherever you get podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you can find us. And we're also on YouTube. Just search Locked On Northwestern. You can find us there wherever you are listening. Make sure that you subscribe and turn on notifications. You don't want to miss an episode. And we've got a lot of great stuff that we are working on. Today's episode coming to you from my childhood home in a very makeshift setup that I just threw together here right before turning on the recording. But yeah, let's dive into this because we're going to talk today about something that I have talked a lot about. I've talked about the importance. I've worked in the field. It's something that is a staple of college sports, intercollegiate athletics now. It wasn't 2.5 years ago, but it is today, and that is NIL. NIL is drastically becoming one of the most important things to these athletes in college. And look, and to this point, Northwestern was the only Big Ten school that did not have an NIL collective. And I've been very critical about that because, look, NIL is it's a part of the world that we live in. You may not agree with every part of NIL. It may be changing what you have always thought intercollegiate athletics was or is, but it's here now. It's real. It's a part of every recruitment. It's part of every transfer, every player that enters the transfer portal. And it's the Wild West out there. There doesn't feel like a lot of rules. You see a lot of coaches right now talking about tampering and how that's such an issue in intercollegiate athletics, specifically football and basketball. You've seen Pat Narduzzi at Pitt make his statements about teams offering. It's not even his quarterback, so I find it really weird that he was deciding to make it a conversation. But he said he heard Drake May at North Carolina was offered $4 million. Actually, I think $5 million. Upwards of that, which, I mean, I've heard rumors similar to that. You hear rumors about guys all over the place. And look, I mean, it's just something that is a part of the game. And the tampering aspect is very, very hard to prove, especially if the player's reaching out to teams, or if it's a friend, a teammate, former teammate from high school, or a friend on another team reaching out. Is very hard to prove that, but that's part of the landscape now as well. Look, I mean, it is such a part of the game of especially football right now that it's something that you have to adapt. You have to jump 2 feet fully in. You have to be fully committed to this new world. And look, some of the NIL numbers being thrown around are absolutely crazy. They're insane. You look at Devin Leary. There's some reports out there. I don't think they're true, especially because he only has 1 year that he can play more of college football. But there's some reports out there saying he's making $4 million to go to Kentucky. And I don't believe that. But those are the kind of numbers that are being thrown around. I mean, you've got Arch Manning, whatever he's going to make at Texas. You've got whatever Caleb Williams got and Jordan Addison got paid at USC. It's a part of the game. And if you don't have a collective, it's extremely difficult, extremely hard to compete in recruiting, in the transfer portal, in all phases of talent acquisition. And I think that is something that Northwestern faced. Northwestern was being left behind. The roster lacked talent in certain positions because they didn't have a collective. I think that that's a large portion of it. I mean, we've also talked about how the academics at Northwestern create a smaller talent pool that you can tap into. Same goes for Stanford. But Northwestern being the only Big Ten school without a collective was a huge detriment to this staff, to this football program. Really, I mean, to basketball too. And look, I was very, very vocal about it. Very much was. It was an impossible ask to ask this staff to compete with the rest of the Big Ten without a collective, without some sort of NIL resource at its disposal. And yet, I mean, all the more reason that it's nothing short of incredible that Fitz and this staff figured out a way to pull a top 40 class, the 38th best class in the country. The best class Fitz has ever had, because he did it with at least one arm, really two arms tied behind his back. You asked him to go into a brawl, and he was at a significant disadvantage to every school in the conference. And he not only went in there and competed with them on the trail, and he finished right in the thick of the conference, which is impressive. And you cannot understate that at all. That cannot be talked about enough. Enough credit there cannot be given, especially coming off a 1-11 season. What he was able to do, the way he was able to keep the staff together, to keep the class together, rather, is amazing. Well, now, as of this month, Northwestern is in the game. They're in the game. TrueNU is a collective that is being launched, and that is huge. We will talk about how it may, what the effects are in a little bit. But the fact that Northwestern's in the game means that this program can return to being competitive. And that is key. That is the biggest takeaway that I have by Northwestern finally. You're late to the game. You're late to the game. But if you do it right, you can catch up. You can catch up. And we will talk about that here in a second. But first, let's talk about our friends at LinkedIn. Today, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. All you have to do is add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Also, thank you for making Locked On Northwestern your first listen every single day. Make sure you check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast next. The biggest stories around the sports world in 20 minutes or less, plus instant reactions, game recaps, and Locked On's take of the day. Locked On Sports Today, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. All right, let's jump into this. Let's talk more about this collective, because TrueNU, not a lot of information about it right now. Really not a lot. But you know it's a big deal that it's happening. And look, having been a part of a collective that was just starting out, it's a long process. It's a difficult process. It is laborious, to say the least. When you're just starting out, you feel like you don't have the manpower. You don't have enough people involved to get what you need to get done, but you just got to keep pushing forward. And TrueNU is going to be run by former Northwestern running back and the former director of football operations, Jacob Schmidt. He posted on his LinkedIn page a few weeks ago, after 16 seasons directly affiliated with Northwestern football, I am leaving the program. Over 100 wins, 10 bowl games, and countless lessons learned. I am forever grateful to Coach Fitz for the opportunity to walk on 15 years ago. I will forever bleed purple. While bittersweet, I am beyond excited to take over as executive director of TrueNU, a nonprofit alumni collective designed to directly support all NU athletes through NIL. The future of college athletics is here, so what better way to embrace it than by supporting our athletes and programs while doing good in the community? So there you go. That's the statement from the executive director of TrueNU. So the process has started. It may take a little bit longer to see tangible results, to see tangible impact, because there's a lot of steps. There's a lot of hoops you have to jump through. And so Northwestern fans, as much as I talked about how Northwestern had to hurry to get something up and running, now that the process has started, you may have to be a little bit patient, because it is it's hard to get the proper funding. You got to build your website, you got to build your social media, you got to create the right messaging and PR to get the messaging out there in front of alumni. And really, I mean, it'll take time. The impact may not be felt by 2023, the next football season. That won't, because signing day has already happened. The vast majority of signing day. Northwestern might continue to add players. They might. They might add some players via the portal. But for the majority of it, the roster you're not going to see drastic results from the collective that literally just started 3 weeks ago. So it's going to take time. I think the first time that you're going to see tangible results that you're going to be able to look at and be like, NIL had an impact, is the 2024 class and the transfer portal in 2024, maybe even that May window, because we know Northwestern loses a lot of key pieces off this roster this past year. They're going to need to add more, and I think May is a great opportunity for that. But all in all, it is going to take time, because you got to do it right. You can do it fast or you can do it right. And Northwestern, I know, is going to take its time and do it right. And that's the most important thing, because you don't want to do it, then have to circle back to the beginning point or back 3, 4, 5 steps and have to rebuild it and do it right. You need to be diligent, making sure you're taking each step correctly, while also understanding that there is a sense of urgency. And that, I expect Northwestern to do that. I think it'll have significant impact moving forward. We know that Northwestern has some money. Now there is a vehicle. There is a funnel for it to get to the athletes. And that is significant. And we'll talk more about the impacts of this, what this could do moving forward in a second. But first, let's talk about I guess something that we all could face here over the holidays. Did you know that well, I guess as you're out celebrating with friends or family, maybe New Year's Eve coming up, you may come across this. But did you know that driving high is considered driving under the influence? That's right. Driving under the influence of marijuana is against the law in every state, even in states where marijuana is legal. That means driving high could get you a DUI. And if you think law enforcement can't tell when you're driving high, you're wrong. Your friends can tell, your coworkers can tell. I mean, everyone, even your parents can tell, everyone can tell. So what makes you think that a law enforcement officer won't know when you're driving high? Driving under the influence of marijuana can slow your response time and change how you perceive time and speed. So if you think you're fine to drive when you're high, you're not. Because the bottom line is, if you feel different, you drive different. And driving high is driving under the influence. So remember, drive high, get a DUI. Paid for by the NHTSA. Also, thanks for making Locked On Northwestern your first listen today. Now make Locked On Sports Today your second listen. Peter Bukowski brings you the biggest stories from around the sports world in 20 minutes. Get the analysis and opinions before anyone else with our local and national experts and insiders. Locked On Sports Today podcast, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. All right, let's talk more about the impact of this NIL collective. What this is going to allow you to do at Northwestern. You're going to see fewer guys transfer out. You're going to be able to retain guys that are valuable parts of your program. And I think that is like Malik Washington. You're not going to see him leave. You're not going to see guys like him leave as often. Brandon Joseph, another guy that you could potentially keep. AJ Hampton, another great example. These are guys that have entered the portal to find a new home, are likely getting paid a lot of NIL money somewhere else to come in and be an instant contributor. With a collective, it gives you a better chance when you are re-recruiting your own roster to retain those guys. And the proof of concept that you are able to prove, like, hey, you can make, our guys are making an average of X. Our guys are taken care of. That becomes a recruiting tool for your staff. Now, this staff can go say, hey, you can come to Northwestern and you're not going to be at a disadvantage from an NIL perspective. You are going to be taken care of. It gives you access to more talent. It's going to level the playing field to an extent for Northwestern compared to what they've been up against the past couple of years. In the transfer portal, it's vital. It's vital. With the money being thrown around, it will allow Northwestern to fill in holes on the roster because they can show, hey, the guys on our roster, taken care of. They're getting a great education. It's another thing. It's just another thing that you can add to the sales pitch. It's not everything, but it's part of the equation, and that is key. And that is something that Northwestern, it's a part of the equation that Northwestern has been missing, and now it's here. And that is huge. And I think that that's going to show its impact as we move forward. And I'm very excited to see this collective get up and running. I want to see how it impacts. I want to see if there are tangible differences from recruiting classes, transfer portal classes, retaining players on the roster. I think there will be, and I think it'll be significant. And I think that is something that I'm looking forward to seeing how Northwestern can now. It's another card in the deck. It's another thing that Northwestern can help leverage to acquire talent, which will give the staff, Fitz and company, a better chance to compete on the field. Because this game, coaching is important. We're not going to deny that by any stretch of the imagination. But acquiring talent is the most important thing in college football, especially in the Power 5, especially in the Big Ten and the SEC. There's a reason why Kirby Smart multiple times a year will sit at a microphone in Athens, Georgia, and tell you that it's not about coaching. It's about the fact that his guys on his roster are better than the other guys, better than the other team. He did it last year after beating Florida. And he talked about how whenever he's not on the field, whenever he's not coaching practice, whenever he's not coaching a game, he's on the phone with recruits. He's texting high school guys. He's doing everything he can to make his roster better. NIL is another club in the bag that you can use. And I think that is going to be significant moving forward for Northwestern. That's going to do it for today's episode. Appreciate you tuning in. It was a lot of fun to talk about the hope. Things are moving in the right direction off the field. Now it's just got to bleed its way on the field. But with NIL coming around at Northwestern, the process being started, I think that's significant. Looking forward to see how it impacts it. But appreciate you tuning in to Locked On Northwestern. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. We're available wherever you get podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever. We're also on YouTube. Just search Locked On Northwestern. You can find us wherever you're listening. Make sure you subscribe. You turn on notifications. We're going to continue to pump out videos each week. And appreciate you tuning in. I'm your host, Carter Bird. You can follow me on social media at CarterBird13. And I will see you all next time.